welcome to this episode of the weekly News Roundup. We move first to Uttarakhand. At least 4 persons were killed and dozens feared washed away in the Uttarkashi district of Uttarakhand after flash floods triggered by torrential rain hit the Khyr Ganga river on Tuesday afternoon. The floods hit hotels and residential buildings in Dharali town, situated 8,600 feet above sea level, where video footage recorded by residents showed giant waves of water gushing through the area and swallowing everything in their way, including people and homes. At least 25 establishments, including hotels, guest houses, and homes, were completely destroyed. A rough estimate by the district administration says that around 60 to 70 people are missing or might be trapped in the area. As many as 9 army personnel are feared missing or might be trapped in the same region. We bring you this report.
A cloud burst led to flash floods in the high-altitude villages of Dharali in Uttarakhand's Uttarkashi district on Tuesday, with several houses being damaged or swept away in the raging waters. Residents were heard yelling warnings to their acquaintances to run for their lives. The entire market area of the popular tourist town was washed away in minutes, leaving the place looking like a sludge-filled riverbed. 4 people were reported dead and many feared washed away in the cloudburst. A team of State Disaster Response Force (SDRF) has been sent to the spot to undertake rescue operations. Army tracker dogs, drones, and earth-moving equipment have been deployed for evacuation and providing essential supplies. Heavy rain continued to pound Uttarkashi as rescuers resumed their operations in Dharali, searching for flash flood victims amid the rubble. Nearly half of the picturesque Dharali village was ravaged by the flash flood on Tuesday afternoon. The administration has also set up relief camps for those affected. Hospitals in the area have been asked to reserve a separate wing for the treatment of injured people, and medical teams have been asked to be ready with beds, oxygen, and medicines. Given the poor weather conditions and further predictions of heavy rains, disaster management officials have been asked to alert people living in villages near the river, asking them to evacuate their homes for safer locations. The Indian Army has deployed its Mi-17 and Chinook helicopters to look for the stranded. The Uttarkashi-Harsil road was also blocked by landslides and flood debris. Clearance operations are currently underway to restore connectivity. The Indian Army, alongside State Disaster Response Force and National Disaster Response Force, has mobilized relief teams. Helicopters and heavy equipment are deployed amid challenging terrain. The Chandigarh-Manali National Highway remains closed due to heavy rainfall and multiple landslides along the stretch between Mandi and Kulu. Uttarakhand continues to reel under intense rainfall, with several districts witnessing relentless downpours. In Rudraprayag, incessant rain through the night has pushed the Alaknanda River dangerously close to the warning mark. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah spoke to Uttarakhand CM Mr. Dhami, took stock of the situation and the rescue operations. The union government has assured the state of its help in the rescue efforts. As the weather situation intensifies and the rescue operations continue, we hope and pray the rescuers are able to track and rescue more people who could be trapped in the rubble of the flood-ravaged areas.
US President Donald Trump on Wednesday escalated trade tensions with India, imposing an additional 25% ad valorem duty above the 25% reciprocal tariffs announced on August 1st, and signaled that even higher levies could be on the horizon. While the initial 25% tariff came into effect from Thursday, the additional 25% will come into effect after 21 days. During a White House event, when asked by reporters that Indian officials have stated that there are other countries like China that are buying Russian oil too, this is what Trump had to say. You are going to see a lot more. You are going to see so much secondary sanctions. Flanked by Apple CEO Tim Cook and top administration officials, Trump signed an executive order that adds an additional 25% tariff on India, building on a similar measure announced just last week. The new order, set to take effect on August 27th, brings India's total tariff burden to 50%, the highest among US trading partners now penalized for dealing with Russia. We bring you this report.
The move drew swift condemnation from New Delhi. In a sharply worded statement, Mr. Randhir Jaiswal from the Ministry of External Affairs said, "It is extremely unfortunate that the US should choose to impose additional tariffs on India for actions that several other countries are also taking in their own national interest." The MEA also described the tariffs as unfair, unjustified, and unreasonable, and warned it would take all actions necessary to protect its national interests. India had earlier accused the West of engaging in trade with Russia without the compulsion of any national interest, unlike in its case. It is revealing that the very nations criticizing India are themselves indulging in trade with Russia. Unlike our case, such trade is not even a vital national compulsion, according to the statement. Targeting the US for its double standards of engaging in trade with Russia while threatening other nations, it added that the US continues to import uranium hexafluoride for its nuclear industry, palladium for its electric vehicle industry, as well as fertilizers and chemicals from Russia. Trump, however, dismissed claims of selective enforcement when asked why countries such as China and Turkey, which also import large quantities of Russian oil, had not faced equivalent penalties. "It may happen, I do not know. I cannot tell you yet," he said. "We did it with India. We are doing it probably with a couple of others. One of them could be China." Currently, China faces a 30% tariff and Turkey 15%. India's new 50% rate matches only Brazil, with competitors like Myanmar 40%, Bangladesh 35%, and Vietnam 20%, facing significantly lower tariffs. When asked on whether the new sanctions might be reversed in the event of a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine, Trump said, "We will determine that later, but right now they are paying a 50% tariff." In the executive order, Trump justified the move by stating that the Indian government is currently directly or indirectly importing Russian Federation oil, and that this action necessitated the imposition of an additional ad valorem duty. India, meanwhile, has emphasized that its oil imports are based on market factors and geared toward ensuring the energy security of 1.4 billion people.
And as you know, we put a 50% tariff on India on oil. They're the second largest. They're very close to China in terms of the purchase of oil from Russia. But so I don't know if that had anything to do with it. But we've had very productive talks today. Yes, ma'am?
Mr. President, if you do reach a deal with Ukraine and Russia, would you drop the additional tariffs on India?
Well, we'll determine that later. But right now they're paying a 50% tariff. Please.
Indian officials have said that there are other countries that are buying Russian oil.
It's okay.
Like China, for instance,
It's
buys
okay.
more.
Yeah.
Why are you singling India out?
So let's see what happens over the next.
More secondary sanctions
you're going
very
to see a lot
soon.
more.
So this is a taste of
You're
what's
going to
to
see a
come.
lot more. You're going to see so much secondary sanctions.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi reacted to the news in a strikingly worded message saying that we will not compromise on the interests of our farmers, our fishermen, our herders. He further said, "I know we may have to pay a heavy price for this stand, but we are very clear. We will not compromise whatsoever on the interests of our farmers and our fishermen."
साथियों, हमारे लिए अपने किसानों का हित सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता है। भारत अपने किसानों के, पशुपालकों के और मछुआरे भाई बहनों के हितों के साथ कभी भी समझौता नहीं करेगा। और मैं जानता हूं व्यक्तिगत रूप से मुझे बहुत बड़ी कीमत चुकानी पड़ेगी, लेकिन मैं इसके लिए तैयार हूं। मेरे देश के किसानों के लिए, मेरे देश के मछुआरों के लिए, मेरे देश के पशुपालकों के लिए आज भारत तैयार है।
As the world marks the 80th anniversary of the first use of a nuclear weapon on the Japanese city of Hiroshima near the end of World War II, the planet is closer to seeing them used again than it has been in decades. Experts and survivors are warning. At the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park on Wednesday morning, dignitaries and the dwindling number of survivors were set to commemorate the moment a US B-29 bomber dropped the atomic bomb known as Little Boy on August 6, 1945. 3 days later, the nearby city of Nagasaki was destroyed by a second US atomic bomb. More than 110,000 people were killed instantly in the attacks, while hundreds of thousands more perished from injuries and radiation-linked illnesses over the years. To this day, they remain the only times that nuclear weapons have been used in warfare, and yet these weapons continue to present a very present-day threat. We bring you this report.
A silent prayer was held in Japan on Wednesday morning as it marked 80 years since the United States dropped an atomic bomb on the city of Hiroshima. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba attended the ceremony on Wednesday, along with officials from around the world and the city's mayor, Kazumi Matsui. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba said, "The divisions within the international community over nuclear disarmament are deepening, and the current security environment is growing increasingly severe." Nihon Hidankyo, a Japanese grassroots organization of survivors that won the Nobel Peace Prize last year for its pursuit of nuclear abolition, said, "We don't have much time left while we face greater nuclear threat than ever. Our biggest challenge now is to change nuclear weapons states that gives us cold shoulders, even just a little." Contemporary tensions have been reflected in just the past week, with nuclear saber rattling between Russia and the United States over Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. And recent months have seen the US strike Iranian nuclear facilities with its powerful conventional bombs in a bid to stop Tehran's nuclear program. The Hiroshima atomic bomb, with an explosive yield of 15 kilotons, would be considered a low-yield nuclear weapon by today's standards. The largest nuclear weapon in the US arsenal has a yield of 1.2 megatons, 80 times greater than the Hiroshima bomb. A single modern nuclear weapon, if exploded over a large city, could kill millions instantly, experts warn. And there are more than 12,000 total in the hands of 9 nuclear powers: the US, Russia, China, France, the United Kingdom, India, Pakistan, North Korea, and Israel, according to SIPRI. Nearly all of those countries continued intensive nuclear modernization programs in 2024, upgrading existing weapons and adding newer versions. SIPRI's latest annual report said, "The US and Russia combined hold about 90% of the world's nuclear weapons, but smaller nuclear powers are growing or planning to grow their arsenals," according to the report.
We move now to France, and in latest news coming in, hundreds of firefighters are battling to stop the spread of a fast-moving wildfire in southern France, after one woman died and 9 people were injured as the blaze scorched a vast area of the Corbières Hills. The blaze burned an area the size of Paris over one afternoon and night and was still burning, making it the second biggest fire in France in 50 years. The French Prime Minister François Bayrou, who visited the area, described the fire as a catastrophe of unprecedented scale. We bring you this report.
The fire, which started on Tuesday afternoon, had burned nearly 40,000 acres inland from the Mediterranean near the Spanish border. It began in the village of Ribote in Erd region, spreading across the rural wooded area of the Corribier, famous for its vineyards and medieval villages. A woman died in her home, and one person was in a critical condition with severe burns, according to the Erd prefecture. Several firefighters were also injured. At least 25 homes were destroyed or damaged. Police are investigating the cause of the fire. The Environment Ministry said the fire had destroyed the same amount of land in 24 hours that wildfires typically burned across France in a year. This is an exceptional fire that illustrates the scale of the consequences of the climate crisis, the ministry said in a statement. The wildfire remained very active, local authorities said. They said all residents had been evacuated. One of the residents said, "It's a scene of sadness and desolation. It looks like a lunar landscape. Everything is burned. More than half or 3/4 of the village has burned down. It's hellish." Planes were dropping water on the flames, but authorities said that the fire will keep them busy for several days and that it was a long-term operation. Weather conditions were expected to remain unfavorable due to strong winds, rising temperatures, and dry vegetation in the area, officials said. Camping grounds and at least one village were partially evacuated and several roads closed. Residents and tourists were asked to remain in their homes unless told to leave by firefighters. Some tourists were evacuated from campsites, spent the night in municipal buildings. The French President Emmanuel Macron wrote on social media, "All of the nation's resources are mobilized." He called on people to exercise the utmost caution. The Earth Department in particular has experienced an increase in wildfires in recent years, aggravated by low rainfall and the removal of vineyards, which used to help slow the advance. Last month, a wildfire that reached the southern city of Marseille left about 300 people injured. Southern Europe has experienced large fires this summer. Fires have burnt more than 25,000 hectares of Portugal since the beginning of 2025, according to the European Forest Fire Information System. There have also been wildfires in central Spain, Turkey, Greece, and in the Balkans. Climate breakdown is exacerbating the frequency and intensity of heat and dryness, making the region more vulnerable to wildfires. Europe is the world's fastest warming continent, with temperatures increasing at twice the speed of the global average since the 1980s, according to the EU's Copernicus Climate Change Service.
Moving now to the world of cricket. India has secured a memorable 6-run victory over England in the 5th and final test at the Oval, dramatically levelling the 5-match series 2-2. The triumph came on Monday as fast bowler Mohammad Siraj castled Gus Atkinson, sparkling jubilant celebrations among the Indian players. The tireless Mohammad Siraj's warrior spirit steered India to a series-levelling 6-run victory over England, bringing a fitting end to one of the most intensely fought and drama-filled contests in recent memory. With 4 wickets in hand and just 35 runs to get, England held the edge at the start of the final day. But the gladiator in Siraj made life miserable for the opposition batters from the very first ball. In the end, his fiery effort, well supported by Prasidh Krishna at the other end, left England short by the narrowest of margins and allowed India to sign off with a 2-2 draw in the high-pressure 5-match series. We bring you this report.
The decision to call off play early on day 4, following a brief spell of rain, drew criticism from the likes of Stuart Broad and Michael Vaughan. However, it seemed fitting that the decider extended into the final day, with both teams battling tooth and nail until the very end. Mohammad Siraj and Prasidh Krishna delivered special performances with the ball, ensuring the visitors' thrilling comeback. Siraj ended the match with an impressive 5-wicket haul, 5 for 104, while Prasidh played his role to perfection, claiming 4 wickets, 4 for 126. The final wicket saw Atkinson completely beaten by a searing yorker from Siraj that crashed into his stumps, sealing India's win. Siraj emerged as India's standout performer, delivering one of his finest bowling efforts. He concluded the series with 23 wickets, the highest across both teams, underscoring his tireless dedication throughout the challenging contest. Both Siraj and Prasidh Krishna sizzled with the ball precisely when their team needed them most. Even as an injured Chris Wokes, batting at number 11 with a shoulder injury and his left arm in a sling, battled through immense pain while at the crease, highlighting the intensity of the final moments. England set a record target of 374, appeared to be in a commanding position at 339 for 6, when bad light and torrential rain forced an early stumps on the 4th evening. This came after centuries from Joe Root and Harry Brook on the 3rd and 4th days seemed to have put England in a series-clinching position, setting up a tantalizing final day. However, India picked up the remaining 4 wickets in quick succession on Monday, bringing England's second innings to a close at 367 in 85.1 overs, just 6 runs short of their target. The series saw gripping back and forth. England won the opener by 5 wickets at Leeds, but India swiftly responded with a crushing 336-run victory in the second match at Birmingham. The hosts then regained their series lead by narrowly edging out the Shubham Gill-led visitors by 22 runs at Lord's. India had previously produced a remarkable 5th-day batting display to secure a draw in the 4th game at Manchester, setting the stage for this dramatic series decider at the Oval.
Thanks so much for watching. Until we meet next time, stay blessed.